Alright, I'm going to start off by telling you the difference between conventional and sumo for those of you that may not know. Conventional is when your legs are about hip width apart and your hands go on the outside of your thighs. The advantage is it's usually very strong off the floor because you're using your back and your legs. The disadvantage is that it's often harder for the lockout. Now with the sumo, your legs are much wider and your hands go inside your thighs. The advantage is that you usually have a very strong lockout, or if you get it off the ground, you can typically finish the lift. Disadvantage is that it's very hard to get off the ground to start with. So if you're not used to it, you'll also think that, oh my goodness, this is just so much heavier, but you have to stick with it and pull through it because once you get it off the ground, you can typically finish it. Now, there are a lot of different body types, and most females, though, will typically pull sumo, and the reason is that they have wider hip structure and they're often shorter and lower center of gravity. So that is typically what a female will use for powerlifting. Now the everyday person off the street will often use conventional style because that would be how people would pick things up in everyday life. Different people are more prone for different things, so you should really try sumo and conventional, find out what's best for you. There also was an article in the Journal of Pure Power that told you different measurements you could take, like your leg length and things like that, and you could figure out what would be more suited for you. If you would like that file, we will happily send it to you. You just have to email us.
Okay, 3 questions came in from the USAPL Maryland Powerlifting Forum, all dealing with programming and how often we take maxes in training, etc. The first question was, how often would you have an advanced lifter take maxes in training? To answer that question effectively, I think it depends upon whether you're talking about the competition lifts or assistance max effort movements. If you're talking about the competition lifts, we never take maxes in training in the squat and the deadlift. In fact, we only go up to 95% for a single prior to the competition. We feel that in the squat and the deadlift, we like to save it for the platform. Fortunately for most of us, our competition maxes are higher than our training maxes. Now that can't be said for the majority of lifters out there. However, that's what you want to strive for. Nobody cares what you do in the gym. It doesn't matter. The only lifts that count are the ones that are taken on the platform. That being said, you're never going to be able to replicate meet day intensity and adrenaline in the gym. So that's another boost that you're going to get on competition days. You're going to get that adrenaline, you're going to get that intensity, which hopefully that, and if you've trained hard and intelligently, will lead to a higher competition max. That's for the squat and the deadlift. For the bench press, we do push that lift a little bit higher, and particularly with bench shirts, we will go up to 100%, sometimes 100% plus. For the raw lifter, we particularly only probably go up to about 100% in the bench press, and that could be maybe 2 weeks out or something of that nature. So generally speaking, we do not take maxes in training on the competition lifts. Now, if you're speaking about assistance exercises that you would use for max effort, like board presses, floor presses, close grip lockouts, reverse band benches, Zercher squats, different types of box squatting, those types of movements, then absolutely yes. We use the max effort method in our training to augment our competition lifts, and we definitely push those and are willing to take maxes, both 1 rep maxes, 3 rep, 5 rep, etc. The next question is, how far out from a competition would we have an advanced lifter take maxes? Well, I kind of just answered that in the previous question. We typically don't take maxes, but this kind of leads into the next question, is what should our programming look like for a lifter the last 3 to 4 weeks into a meet? That depends on a lot of different factors. It depends on how advanced the lifter is, number 1, their level of preparedness, number 2, and also their current state of fatigue, particularly systemic fatigue. If we have a lifter that's really overtrained and kind of beat up going into a meet, then we'll start deloading them a little bit sooner. So they may even deload the last 2.5 weeks, whereas someone that's feeling pretty fresh, we may only deload a week and a half etc., and then be ready for the meet. So typically, what some of it looks like is, for example, in the deadlift, we take our last heavy deadlift 12 days out. So typically we deadlift on Mondays if we're going to compete on a Saturday, so 12 days out, which would be the Monday of the week before the meet. We would take our last deadlift, and again, we're probably going up somewhere between 90, no more than 95% in the deadlift. That's the one lift of the three where you're going to get the most boost from the adrenaline and the meet day intensity. Our squat, we would typically take our last heavy squat the Friday before that Monday that we deadlift, so 2 weeks out for the squat, 15 days out for our last heavy squat, and again, that's 95% for a single. And speaking from experience for myself and those that I coach, if we smoke 95% in training, I can almost assuredly guarantee you that there's going to be a PR at the meet, because the 95% is just beneath what we would be taking for a second attempt. So if we smoke the 95%, we're usually very, very confident that a PR is going to happen. As for the bench press, as I said before, we push that lift a little bit harder. You can recover a little bit more quickly from the bench press, etc. So we may be pushing that a little harder. We may actually take our last heavy bench, 10 days out, occasionally a week out, but typically, 10 to 14 days out, and then again, kind of deload and take it easy the last week. So that's kind of what our training looks like. As far as assistance exercises, we do kind of taper our assistance a little bit, and definitely I would say the last week or two, we're just hitting the most important things for us, particularly in the squat and the deadlift, our abs, a little bit of lower back, with some reverse hypers, that sort of thing, and for the bench press, it's primarily just upper back and triceps. So that's kind of what the training looks like leading up to a meet. A little footnote to the question about taking maxes in training. If a lifter is coming off of an injury or coming off of a long layoff, then yes, perhaps about a month out from a meet, we would do what we call a skills evaluation, where we would come in and try to work up to about 100% in all three lifts. So it's almost as if we're having a mini meet in the gym, and if there's more there, we'll take it, but I would say more often than not, we would just stop at 100%, again, because it all goes back to the fact that we want to save it for the platform. We're not too big on being all-stars in the gym. We want to be all-stars on the platform. So again, unless a lifter is coming off of a long layoff, hasn't competed in a while, coming off of an injury, perhaps they've moved up a weight class, they're trying a new piece of gear, something along those lines, then perhaps, like I said, we would do a skills evaluation about a month out. But other than that, we do not take maxes in training on the competitive lifts.